Our goal for Future Human School was to create a truly alternative education system, a school. Our kids went to regular school in the UK briefly, and then we went travelling. We went world schooling, so that's basically using the world as a playground, as a school, as an education tool, using different countries, different cultures as the classroom for kids. So kind of homeschool in a worldly environment. As our kids grew older, they needed a little bit more stability and they needed a little bit more direction. They need other people as well. And so that was one of our goals, was to create a space that is anticipating the future. Because as kids get older and more into their sort of 12 into early teens, you have different metrics in terms of how you're thinking about your kids' education and how you're sort of measuring their growth. So we're looking at anticipating the future of work and the way that the world is changing, and we're sort of trying to anticipate that in the work that we do with the kids in terms of how they decide to learn. I spend time with some parents that have older kids, and their kids have gone through university already. And just talking to them, we're already seeing the journey from being at university, for example, and into workplace. The employers are starting to look at very different metrics. And so one of my clients, his daughter went to a very prestigious university in America, and their job placement from that university was around 75% on a few years ago. And he was saying it's dropped to about under 20%. So there's been a huge drop just in terms of the transition from university into the workplace. And then you have to look at AI as well, and just in terms of what that's actually going to do to the future of work as well. And we're setting our kids up for a very different future than we experienced. So I think you can't ignore the fact that the world's changing, but we've got a 200-year-old education system, but our kids are growing up into a world that's vastly different, and it's not changing fast enough. I also think I can see that in the rise of education technology that's being used in traditional schools, as well as in some alternative schools as well, that the use of EdTech seems like a really good and useful tool for kids to use in terms of their learning. But we're actually seeing statistics now that it's actually showing that they're loving the gamification of education, but then are not actually learning anything. So there's a huge kind of, kids will naturally gravitate towards gamification of education, but the actual learning is actually decreasing. So there's a big move now as well to actually use technology in the classrooms in a much more meaningful way that is about the execution of learning and not the learning itself, which needs to be really humanised, used in a completely different way from the way the kids are actually learning. Well, we focus predominantly on the 11 to 15 age range. And in Bali, for example, there's many different kind of alternative schools, but very few focus on the secondary, the high school age. And it seems to me that when parents are putting their kids into alternative education, by the time they get to 10, 11, their kind of metrics change, and they can quite often look at how are we assessing our child's progress. And the only way they know to do that is to go back into more of a traditional kind of education where they're kind of getting grades and exams. And so the difference that we looked at is in anticipating the future is that grades are going to matter less, skills are going to matter more, confidence is going to matter a lot more. And so we focus on that within that framework. And so we look at the idea that we don't treat the kids as kids. They're learning from mentors, we bring in guest mentors. And so these parents kind of default back to a more traditional based education to sort of assess where their kids are. And for us, that's not really approaching or anticipating what the kids are going to need within the future. If we start to sort of treat the students like adults, and teach them adult-based skills. So we do profiling, for example. We do a lot of the sort of self-regulation techniques that adults learn, that they're learning at a teenage age. And it's my belief that there's no longer a linear path in terms of school, university, job enhancement and career enhancement, and then retirement. Life is becoming increasingly digitised, it's becoming increasingly mobile, which creates a lot of opportunities for the future, the future of our kids. And so you have to look at life as this kind of more like a series of projects. And so that's what we're trying to emulate in our school, which is each term is 8 to 10 weeks, and there's 2 projects that the kids do within that. So they understand that there's a start and there's a finish, and they know what their expectation is throughout that kind of project. So they know they're going to finish something, and then we use a system whereby there's a complete internal reflection process. So they're constantly learning and assimilating what they've learned from a skills based and how they've applied the learning along the way. So when they reach the end of the project, there's a review process, and then they can really understand how to take what they've learned from this project into the next project. And that's how I think life is going to look like in the future as well. Well, I think the difficulties that parents can find when they move to Bali is deciding on the right choice for them. I think it's relatively easy to, if your child is sort of below the age of 10, there's a big kind of reset that happens for families when they come to Bali in terms of moving out of the system they were in and adapting to a more relaxed environment where they have more time to think about their life, but also they're much more invested in their children's future and their education. But that comes with its own challenges in terms of there's so much variety. Knowing what's right for your child it can be a challenge in itself. From our point of view, I think we also have, while we focus on the 11 to 16 age bracket, we have a 9 to 10 bridge program, which is designed to get those children prepared in order to be, to be able to excel and deal with some of the challenges and the opportunities in the main program that we offer. Before that age group, I think the main things parents should be really thinking about is reading, writing, mental maths, and this kind of confidence building in terms of being able to communicate, which does come down to some sort of very core skills. So I think it's difficult for some parents when they arrive in Bali to look at the education experience and really kind of jump forward in terms of anticipating how quickly they will have to think about more of a secondary level education, but also what it is they want for their kids. There's no right or wrong answer, it's all down to personal preference. I just think sometimes some parents kind of default to the only way to assess the quality of a school is the same process that they went through when they were at school, and the only way they think about that is through exams. And so it requires some introspection, I think, in terms of when you arrive in Bali to kind of settle down into the rhythm here, but then really anticipate what's going on for your children's future. I think the ability to adjust is going to be completely dependent on the age that they are, but at the end of the day, I think, as we said, the linear progression in terms of primary school, secondary school, university, there feels like there's a lot of pressure for kids to reach that point at 18 where they can go and get a job or go to further education. And I think what we're seeing is that linear, the necessity to have that answered at that age is not important. I didn't know what I wanted to do at 18. I still don't know really what I want to do when I grow up. So asking kids to know, to understand that at age 18 is a question to be asked. What we offer is every child that is and student that goes to the Future Human School develops character, develops confidence, develops curiosity. They increase their communication skills, and they still end up doing a lot of the subjects, maths, English, sociology, geography, in every single project we do. But they don't know that they're learning those skills on the pathway, that we do for the projects. So from our perspective, what we're really trying to do is raise our students to be prepared for life in Bali, but also beyond. And so the question is, can they adapt back into regular school if they attended Future Human School? The answer is they're going to be much more rounded and confident individuals, and they're not going to be thinking in terms of, have I excelled in terms of actual grades in particular subjects. So I think, again, we've seen kids come through and stayed with us for a term, 2 terms, sometimes even longer, and actually still go back to the country that they came from. So some parents are taking a year sabbatical, for example, travelling, and they'll come through us for a period of time, and those kids return back to mainstream education, if that's what their parents want. With, as far as we know, little to no problems in terms of their ability to adjust, but they're much more rounded individuals in terms of their personalities. I think we have for us, it's always asking the question, is university the right route? I was an entrepreneur from a young age, and I think I'm glad that I recognised that for me personally, university wasn't the path. And I think the university choice comes with an awful lot of debt, and so and that debt is increasing in terms of the having to pay to go to university and what that means for both on the parents, the families, the pressure to pay that financially, but also it's kind of the student will carry that with them for a long time. So I think it's becoming much more a question of being sure if university is the right path in the first instance, because we're seeing, as we said, lots of metrics which are showing that employers are not looking at degrees as the metric to employ new staff and graduates. So, but having said that, we're starting to see already that universities are looking at portfolios-based experience, skills, application of skills in terms of their actual hiring criteria for adopting new students into universities. So they're looking for more rounded individuals because they know that their job is to prepare students for the future of work, and if their metrics are dropping, then they need to look at their application processes on the way in to make sure that there's much more rounded individuals from the student's perspective. So things are going to change quite quickly, I think, in the space of education and in terms of university progression. I think adults really need to think if they really want to do that. And again, you know, you can be a mature student, so if you're not sure about going to university at age 18 or 19, there's still time, right? There's lots of mature students, and I think that's a benefit that's underlooked when it comes to thinking about university applications. I think we're at exactly the right time for our students to go through. I think within the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see university applications change in terms of the criteria and the metrics that they're looking at. Our goal beyond age 16 is to have a 16 to 18, 19 year old program that will really address that transition from higher education into further education and into the workplace as well. In terms of the portfolio our kids will have, that they can demonstrate that they've actually got the skills, the knowledge and the confidence to be very well-rounded individuals that are going to fit into university anyway. We really are encouraging curiosity and creating from that space of curiosity, which does really engender in the students this idea of freedom of thought. And I think even adults don't always embrace as much as they possibly can, just expanding outside of what they know. And so we are educating some real free thinkers, and that comes with understanding where the boundaries are, as you say. So I think that all comes down to the structure and the expectations on the kids, and we are very, very clear up front in terms of what will be expected of them, what we should expect of themselves, and then and the framework and the output of their time with us each term. But I think it's also really, really important to make sure that the values the school is founded on, they really start to embody and understand those values. So because we're here in Bali, we've adopted the Tri-Hita Karana, which is the way of being and way to be harmonious with your environment and people around you. And so that's sort of the intersection and harmony of spirit, people and nature and the environment in terms of the world around you. And when you sort of become empathetic to those set of values and they're lived every single day, then we seem to have found a really nice balance between the sort of discipline and the expectation, but also the way that it's managed from the sense of the harmony that the kids feel. And every single day they have a process at the start of the day as well as at the end of the day to really, we call it be time, which is really their time within a circle to reflect on their day, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, or if they failed at, and what could be better. And so there's always this self-reflection between this sort of harmonious elements in terms of the way the environment that they're in and what they're learning. So I think it really comes down to answer your question, it really comes down to the environment that you do create and the values on which it stands and the expectations that they know that they're living up to, which are to become better humans. I mean, we put as much importance on community building as the education here. I mean, as the old African saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So we take that village approach. Every parent is invested in their kids' education, and the family unit makes up an important part of our community, because they're stakeholders in our success and the success of their kids and the success of the future generations. And so, yeah, we really do engender as much opportunities for community to come together as we can. Because at the end of the day, we are visitors in this country, and as families and parents kind of explore different ways to educate their kids, it's nice to have that stability in the form of a community that they know is going to be nurturing everything that they want from the life that they're seeking by being in somewhere like Bali. Part of our big vision is to build our own village, and the school will be part of that, and to build a really strong community here that becomes self-sufficient, community sufficient, and is creating opportunities for the community, the families, as well as the opportunities for the kids in the future as well. So we've got big plans for that, and one of the ways that we do that at the moment is on every Friday we have a day which we call the Village Day, which is when the community can come together and the parents can join in some of the kids' activities. And it might be that we go into the community and work within the Balinese community, sort of finding ways to contribute back to Bali in meaningful ways, or we're going around Bali and using the island as our playground to really sort of get in balance, spend some time together, and build those community bonds, which are so important for families as they arrive in Bali in search of a new life. How do you want me to say that then? How should I say that? I'm trying to think, because I don't want to get their testimonials wrong. For example, we had a testimonial from a parent that came in today, and she had twin daughters, and she was just commenting on just how valuable the community element was to her and her family, as they were trying to uncover a different way to educate their kids. But the comments really were about the difference they'd seen in their daughters from a confidence level. One of the things we really encourage from moving from curiosity to creating their own projects within the term, to them being able to communicate those. And she was talking about how one of her daughters in particular, she would never have imagined her daughter standing up in front of her peers and her class, presenting her ideas with such confidence and with such joy at the same time. And then just how embraced they felt by the community, but also their daughters within the classroom that we've created. We are seeing huge change in the kids in terms of their own progress. We've even seen some kids that have come that literally have not thrived in traditional education, and their parents are really trying to explore different ways to educate their kids. And the environment we've created, because of the values, because of the community, and because of the education pathways we're building, they just see their children completely change and become more confident kids and fit in. They're finding their place because they're not being forced to just memorize information for 4, 5, 6 hours a day. They are embracing the challenges that we put before them, and so often they're exploring the projects that they want to explore, lights them up in ways that they can't with traditional education. So we run 2 projects concurrently. One is always a organised project, and the theme of that changes each term. So last term we were focusing on food, sustainable ability in food. So that comes from everything from they have the opportunity to work in the gardens here, growing their own food from bare soil, understanding the sustainability aspects of that, the nutritional aspects from that, and how it affects their body. So throughout that, they're doing biology, they're doing physiology, they're learning all the different kind of subjects that brings with it. And we're using all the organic farms here, the permaculture. We're bringing mentors in and experts that can talk to them about the different sustainability of levels of food, how it's grown here. And then the objective at the end is that they had a restaurant takeover. And in the weeks leading up to the end of term, designing their own menus. They are learning how to market the event. They learn how to cook all of their own food, and then they own the restaurant for an entire day and evening To make sure that happens, we brought everyone from local chefs to Michelin star chefs in, and they go to visit Michelin star kitchens, they visited local kitchens, and so they're always learning how to kind of upscale and raise their game in terms of the project itself. And so the final day of our term was them serving their parents, their peers and the community their menu that they designed, and talking about everything they'd learned for the entire term. And we just sat down as families and kind of enjoyed the time together, and they served us their meal and told us all about it, right? So they complete restaurant takeover. And alongside each term, they also do their personal exploration projects. So the questions we ask are, what do you want to get better at? What problem do you want to solve? What's happening in the world that you are interested in? So that could be research, it could be product development, it could be getting better at the arts, so music or arts and crafts. It can be anything that they want, and we curate that experience with them, where we bring expert mentors in to move their project from just what they want to get better at, that's creating some impact for them. And very often with the older kids, it's the impact beyond what they just want to learn. And the kids absolutely love that, because that's something that they are super passionate about. And then of course you're going to get some kids during that process, the ideation process of that, where they really start to stretch, they really start to think really, really big. And there's a process that they have to go to in terms of really managing their time from a project-based level, because they understand time management, project management, managing their own time and managing their own expectations. So if the kids that stay here for term after term, they're constantly learning and reassessing how it went for them last term, what they want to change, and you just start to see this real crystallization of confidence in them in managing their own time, managing their own passions and creativity, all the while really supported by the mentors here, but also the mentors that we bring in for them. So everything from coding to carpentry to cooking, chefs. We brought in one of our students wanted to get better at sushi. So we found a sushi chef from Sonora, brought them in. They had a whole day experience with them. So these kids are having one-to-one experiences with some really expert mentors in terms of what it is they want to experience. And that just really enhances their learning. It's the idea they have comes to life in ways. It's real in the real world.